So hello friends. So I'm gonna be discussing the opening phase of the game between Vachier Lagrave and Caruana Fabiano. This game is being played in the candidates tournament, which is going on for the next 2 weeks. And this round was and this game was played in round 1. My motivation of creating this video is to strictly study the opening phase of this game because I think there are some interesting ideas in the opening which I'd like to analyze, and hopefully you guys can also learn how to play the Archangelsk variation in RuyLopez from both sides, right? White is Vachier Lagrave, black is Caruana Fabiano, and you have the pictures here, and I think my video is on the left side. All right, so anyway, let's get started. E4, 5, not e6, b5, a6. So bishop b5 is the Spanish variation, as many of you might know. Then a6, bishop a4, knight f6, castles. Very standard moves up till this point, and now black plays b5. Of course, the alternative here is to play bishop e7 in some variations, and after white plays rook e1, then black plays b5. Right. So this is variation leads to like Marshall, Zaitsev variation, Briere variation, and a lot of other possibilities for black. Anyway, so black plays b5 in the main game. Caruana has been playing this Archangelsk variation for a while now. Actually, I think I've seen him play this variation like around 8 years ago when I was playing the same tournaments as Caruana did. I think it was Reykjavik International Chess Tournament in 2012, and Caruana played bishop c5 during that tournament as well. In fact, I remember his game against Huifan, where he beat Huifan with the black pieces. So this variation has been a part of Caruana's repertoire for a while now, and bishop c5 leads to the Archangelsk variation. So the typical idea in with bishop c5 move is that black does not want to keep his bishop within the pawn chain, like bishop e7. This leads to a play where black voluntarily locks in his bishop inside the pawn chain, and there is a good reason for why I do that. Especially, usually black ultimately ends up regrouping this bishop to become creating some play on the king side. If he's able to get this bishop to g7 after a while, then he can exert some pressure on the h8 a1 diagonal, right? So that's just a different way of playing chess. Bishop c5, he wants to keep this bishop outside the pawn chain and try to create pressure on this a7 g1 diagonal. It's just a different way of playing this opening, nothing good or bad, standard way. And a4. So as we see with bishop c5, black tries to fight for the control of the d4 square in most of the variations. So for white, it becomes important that he has other ways of gaining advantage in the right out of the opening. A4 is a way for white to start creating pressure on the queen side. So obviously, white is not threatening into b5. So There are two ways black can respond. Either he can play bishop b7 and protect his a8 rook, or he can play rook b8 as he did in the game. So the reason behind playing rook b8 is that black wants to keep the bishop on this diagonal. In some variations, black can play d6 and then bishop e6, trying to challenge this white bishop on b3, reducing the pressure on the a2 g8 diagonal. So that's one of the motivation of playing rook b8. Now, having said that, it does not mean that black will go for this plan, but it's just an option that he wants to keep. It's an option he would like to keep. So that's why he's not developing his bishop from c8 to b7. So rook b8 is a reasonable move. Nothing good or bad. It's just one way of playing this opening. White plays c3. So naturally, as many of you might know, in the opening you want to build a center, and so white is preparing to push his pawn to d4. Black plays d6, and white goes d4, and black plays bishop d6. Okay. So there are a few variations that go here. So obviously, I guess one question to ask here is, can white take the pawn on e5? So for example, I can take d into e5, and if black plays knight into e5, then is it possible for white to take the pawn on f7? Well, I would say it's possible, definitely possible, but here he will have to give back his pawn on e4 pretty quickly. So, for instance, play can go on like black can play something like knight into e4, and now black can start to put pressure on the f1, on the f2 square. So this is one reason why the pawn on e5 is not lost, right? So white cannot take the pawn on e5. I mean, he can take, but white will not get any advantage out of it. So for white, it's better to stick to preserving the center and creating more pressure on black's position, right? So white plays a5 in the game. Now instead of a5, there are other moves. I think most obvious move would be to just play rook e1, protect the pawn on e4, and continue the game. There is also another move like h3. So you want to stop bishop to g4. Sorry. So h3, you want to stop bishop to g4. And the idea being that black cannot take knight into e4 because I have this double attack. Black will lose a piece here. So that's the idea behind h3. I mean, I just want to stop the bishop coming to g4 and then continue my development with rook e. But in the game, white played a5, which is a really interesting move. Now, like I think one question that you guys might have is can black take this pawn, right? So there are two ways to take this pawn, one with the knight and one with the bishop. So bishop takes a5 is really obvious. If black takes bishop takes a5, white can simply play bishop d5, or he can just play d5, and black will lose a piece, right? So bishop takes a5 is not possible. Let's see what can happen if knight takes a5. So after knight takes a5, white takes rook into a5, bishop into a5, and now I take d into e5. I go after, I'm attacking black's knight. And now if black takes d into e5, then I take queen into d8, king into g8, knight into e5. Now my knight is threatening knight into f7 check. But I'm also threatening knight to c6, check, and giving a fork on all these three pieces. So say if I play rook f8, then obviously I can give knight c6 check and take the rook on b8. And if black plays something like king to e8, then again I can play knight c6, and black will lose a piece. So let's say black moves something like rook 8, I take knight into a5, and if you see the material balance, white has two pieces for a rook and pawn. Actually, for just a rook, not even a pawn. And this material balance clearly works in white's favor. So this is a winning position for white if that happens. So for this reason, after d into e5, black cannot take the pawn back on e5. But his knight is attacked, right? So it's not on f6 is attacked, so he has to move it somewhere. There are a few possibilities for black to move his knight. So let's see them one by one. So one option for black is to go knight g4. White responds by playing bishop g5, and now the black queen is attacked. So black, let's say he plays queen d7. So if he plays queen d7, white really has a very fantastic move here. He plays e6. Okay. And now obviously the queen and the pawn on f7 are attacked. He takes the pawn on e6, and now I play knight to g4. So I'm attacking the pawn on e6 as well as the knight on g4. So black has to defend one or the other. Let's say he defends it by playing knight to e5. He does that, then I just play bishop into e6, and the queen on d7 is trapped. All right. So other option for black is to play knight to f6. If he plays that, then again I take bishop into e6. And now if black plays queen e7, well, before queen e7, let's just check what happens. If he plays queen d8, then I can again play knight c6 and the queen is trapped. And if he plays queen e7, then I can take rook takes c8 and play knight c6. And again, I have this nasty fork on the queen on e7 and bishop on a5. And white wins a piece here. Yeah. So both these options don't work for black. So knight e5 doesn't work, knight f6 doesn't work. I mean, in both instances, white gains material. So the other option that black has is to play e5 and provide support to his knight on g4. There are a few ways to continue here. White can simply play bishop e6 and trap black's queen. That's definitely one possibility. The other possibility is that white can play knight f5. And I think knight f5 is much stronger than bishop e6. And I think you guys will quickly see the reason why. So after knight f5, the knight on g4 is attacked. So black has to do something to protect the knight on g4. Let's say he plays knight to f6. Now white plays bishop e6. Now the difference being that if black takes on e6, I get the pawn on g7. So I'm just trying to get an extra pawn on g7, and white gets queen. If black plays knight h6, then I take knight into h6, g8, and queen h5 check, and this actually leads to a mating attack. And here black should get mated pretty soon. If he plays king e7, then queen f7 check, king d8, bishop g5, and checkmate in on the next move. So after knight f5, the knight on g4 it is really having a tough time. What black can try to do is maybe play h5, but then again I play bishop e6. And if black plays queen c6, then I can take knight g7 check. For king f8, I go queen f8 check. And again, black should get mated pretty soon. So I think bishop e6 can be played immediately, but then like my take, and bishop into e6. And I think white is still better here, but this gives black a fighting chance because he still has like, he has 7 pawns versus white's 6 pawns. So the material balance is black has rook, bishop, and a pawn for white's queen. And white still has a better position, but this gives black a fighting chance. However, if we continue with knight f5, white is again trying to get the black queen by playing bishop e6, but while doing that, he's also trying to get the pawn on g7. So he's just trying to get one more pawn in that process. This variation also looks great for white. So I'll just go back quickly. If queen d7, then I play e6, f into e6, knight d4, and since both pawn and knight are attacked, black plays e5, I go knight f5, and the knight on g4 has only so many squares. If he goes on either of them on h6 or f6, white has a strong attack after bishop e6. If he plays queen c6, then I can have d7 check, king e7, bishop into f6 check. If he plays king into f6, queen f3 check, king b7, queen f7 check, king h6, and mate. Okay. So black's position does not look good in all of these variations. So I'll just go from the top. Let's go back a few moves. This is the position where white sacrificed his pawn on a5, black played knight into a5, white takes it, takes, and I play d into e5. And now if black plays knight to g4, well, if he takes d into e5, then I take, knight e5, and I have 2 forks on f7 and c6. White gets a piece here. So that's why black cannot take the pawn on e5. He tries to put his knight on g4, but then white plays bishop g5. So we saw the variation where black plays queen d7, white queen d7 runs into e6, take and knight d4, with a very strong attack for white. So the other option that black here has is to play f6. Right? So either he moves his queen or he puts a pawn in front of the bishop. So f6, white takes into f6, and now again black has 2 options. Either he takes the pawn with his knight. If he does that, then white opens up the position with e5, d into e5, and now white plays queen e2. So obviously for white to continue his attack, he has to preserve the queens. If he lets the queens exchange, then he's not going to have a lot of attack. One question that I myself had was, can white do the same thing as it did before by playing take and knight e5? Again, he has 2 forks on c6 and f7. But here the difference is that white is not going to get an extra pawn or pawn in the process. Like he's not attacking a pawn on f7. So here black has a decent chance of saving himself some pieces. So for example, he can play bishop to b7, and if I give knight f7 check, then black comes king d7. And if take on h8, then I play rook into h8. And at the end of this variation, what you see is that the material is equal. So white is not winning any material here. Whereas in the other variation, he could have been a pawn up. Right? So if you want to compare this variation, you can go back and look at it again. Anyway, so knight into f6, e5, d into e5, white plays queen e2. Since black cannot castle on the king side because of the bishop on b3, white keeps his queen, and now he wants to attack the black king. And yeah, so now I'm threatening knight e5 or queen e5. So black plays queen e7. White plays rook e1. So white just has to bring more pieces into the game, and his attack will play by itself. And black now plays bishop g4, trying to pin the knight on f3 so that he cannot take knight e5. But now a different kind of threat comes on the board. White plays queen into e5. And yeah, so white is threatening queen into e7, checkmate. Black takes queen into e5. And knight into e5. And now white has two threats. He again has this fork, but he also is attacking the bishop on g4. And this is a really hard threat for black to stop. So say, for example, he plays something like bishop d7, then I can give knight c6 check. And if he plays king f8, then I can take that into b8. And as you can see, white is a piece up. So white is winning here. So let's go back to the critical moment where black had an option. So f6, white takes on f6. Now, if knight into f6, then white opens up black king's position with e5. So there is another possibility for black, which is playing g into f6, and then white plays bishop h4. And this is this is sort of where the opening phase or the opening theory would end. But in my opinion and in my evaluation, I would say that white has tremendous compensation for the missing exchange, right? So in the opening, white gave his rook for black's knight, but in return, he has been able to fracture black's king side, and especially black's king on e8. It's going to have a very hard time getting to a good position, right? So he cannot castle because of the bishop on b3. There are a few ways black can try to correct that. So maybe he tries to play queen e7. The idea being that I want to play bishop e6, neutralize the bishop on b3, and then castle. But if black plays queen e7, then I can go knight d4 and stopping bishop to e6. But I'm also threatening something like knight c6, a very powerful threat. To stop that, maybe black can play bishop d7. And now there are a few ways by how white can continue. I think one of the most obvious being that we can play knight f5. And if bishop takes f5, then I take e into f5. And now I'm attacking the queen, the knight on g4. If black plays knight e5, then I can go f4, and essentially I'm getting this piece on e5, because if black, let's say, moves his knight, then I can pin black's queen on the e5, right? So if black goes knight e5, play f4, and I get back the knight, and white will be a piece up, right? The other option for black is to play a move like queen g7, and here again this concept of compensation comes into play. Again, as we see, black does not have, or his pieces don't have a lot of coordination between them. So here, there are a few ways white can continue the game. Personally, I would want to play a move like, let's say, knight d2, and I want to bring my knight to e6 square. So on e6, it would be really powerful. So maybe something like knight f3, knight g4, knight e6. And white, again, I think has a lot of compensation. So let me just say white has compensation because black's king is weak. As far as opening theory is concerned, I think this is a good starting position where your opening ends and you want to start playing middle game. The goal of swing opening or having an opening repertoire is to get a good playable position in the middle game. And I think White has achieved that aim here. I think the opening has went remarkably well for White because not only he has a playable position, but he has a position where he can create a lot of attack against the Black King, and there is a lot of play. So I think we can end this variation here. So let's go back. So all these lines arise if Black takes the White pawn on a5. So that's the reason why White is playing a5. It's twofold, right? So if Black takes the pawn on a5 with his bishop or knight, if he takes it with the bishop, then he just loses the piece immediately. If he takes it with his knight, then White gets a lot of compensation after take into e5. There is a lot of attack against the Black king. And if it doesn't take, which is what Caruana did in the opening, and played bishop a7, then White has gained space on the queen side. So for White, White is just trying to get like some sort of space advantage, positional advantage, and that's why a move like a5 is useful in that regard. So yeah, Black played bishop a7. White plays h3. As I said before, he's trying to stop Black's bishop from coming to g4. And the point being that if Black takes knight into e4, then again he will lose his piece. So e4 does not needs to be guarded yet, but the positional threat of bishop g4 needs to be stopped. So what do you do in an opening, right? So it is Black to play. What do you do in an opening? Opening is where you want to develop your pieces, right? So Black castles. He's developing. He's making his king go to safety. Now the pawn on e4 is can be attacked. So I don't think Black can still take on e4. So White plays bishop e3. Black takes e into d4, c into d4, and he plays knight b4. Okay, so this is a really peculiar move. I wouldn't say it's a strange move, but very peculiar move as to what is Black doing here. So I want to take some time to go through this position. So first, let's just get some, discuss some things quickly. Can Black take the knight on e4? The reason being that now if White plays bishop d5, then Black can play queen e8, right? So bishop d5, you're attacking both the knights. And with queen e8, Black is now defending both the knights. So can Black take the pawn on e4? And even though Black doesn't lose the knight on e4, there is some other things that White can do. One obvious one straightforward question is, can White keep attacking his knights like this? So again, I'm attacking both the knights, and does Black lose a piece here? So queen c2. Just put it to score sheet. Right. So queen c2. Queen c2 doesn't really work because now Black can play knight to b4, right? And so the queen is attacked. So you cannot play bishop e4 because your queen is attacked. So you take queen into e4. And now if you take knight into d5, then queen into d5, White is a piece up. But Black has another resource here, which is he plays queen into e4, bishop into e4, and f5. And funnily enough, the bishop on e4 is trapped. So what we see here is that Black, after taking the pawn on e4, does not lose a piece, right? So, I mean, he loses the piece temporarily, but then he quickly regains it. This bishop on e4 is trapped. He does not have any squares. He can go right. And so white will have to either give his bishop back like this, or white can try to play bishop d2, where again black will not lose a piece, right? So take, and again, if you see the material balance, the pieces are equal, and black has an extra pawn. So actually, this position ends up being slightly better for black. So let's go back to queen c2. So the move where black played queen. So queen c2 is definitely a move I'd consider and check if I was winning a piece, but unfortunately, white does not win a piece after queen c2 here. But there is another kind of compensation that white gets here. White plays rook e1, and now white is playing against, like he's bringing this battery against the black queen. So, for example, one of my ideas immediately is to play a move like bishop into c6, right? So I want to play bishop into c6. So let's say white gets an extra move here. I want to take bishop into c6, queen into c6, d5, and then I'm attacking the queen as well as the bishop on a7. So black has to play queen b7, protecting his bishop on a7. And now take, and I take the knight on e4. Right. So I want to take the knight on e4 in this fashion. So that is my idea when I play rook e1. So what does black do here? So one move he can play is something like knight f6. He can try to play knight f6. But then white plays bishop g5. And now the queen is attacked. So black can play queen d7, but then I take, and take on f6. And g into f6. And now we see that, true that white has lost a pawn, but this is where we have to do a second order thinking. Second order thinking meaning we have to decide if the material deficit, like the absence of a pawn on white side is worth something positionally. So white is a pawn down, but does he have any compensation? And I think as compensation, we see that black's king is weak because he has this broken pawn structure, whereas white's king has a good pawn structure. Second thing I would notice here is that this bishop on a7 is really out of play, right? So this pawn on d4 is working against the bishop on a7. So due to these factors, I would say that this position is better for white because the absence of a pawn that it does not affect white as much, and white can continue. Let's say, for example, he can play b4, just solidifying his position on the queen side, or he can play a move like queen d2, and he can try to penetrate on the king side. So yeah, after g into f6, white has attack on black's king. So again, the goal of having opening analysis or opening preparation is to get a playable position, is to get a good position so that you can continue playing in the middle game. So the goal of opening preparation is to not win in the opening. Although if that happens, it's a good result. But if you are playing against a superior opposition. If you're playing against a good opposition, then it's rarely going to happen that you win right out of the opening, right? So when grandmasters or players like Caruana and Maxime Lagrave prepare their openings, they are trying to get a good position out of the opening where they can play the middle game stuff. And I think White has achieved that result here. So yeah, so let's go back when White plays rook e1. After rook e1, White definitely has compensation. Black has very uncomfortable position on the e file. There is another possibility that Black can play. Let's say he plays a move like knight b4, then White plays bishop into e4, queen into e4, and now I play bishop g2. And I'm getting the black knight on b4 and also attacking the queen on e4. So here, White will just simply get a piece. So knight b4 wouldn't work. There are other moves like bishop f5. So this is something Black can definitely play. I guess White can continue here by maybe playing knight h4. He can play knight to h4, or maybe just play bishop f4 and pin the knight on e4. So there are a few ways by which White can continue the game, but this position definitely looks good for White. Okay. I think let's play knight h4, and after if bishop goes to d7, then take g5, bishop into e3, queen rook into e3. Now let's say the bishop goes back to d7, and maybe now I can play something like that. And this knight on e4 is lost. All right. So, but I want to stop the opening analysis after rook e1 because of rook e1, White has a lot of compensation, and I think this looks like a good middle game position for White. Right. So let's go back to the game. So Black took e into d4, c into d4. What other moves can Black play? So clearly, knight into e4 is not possible, or I mean, like Black can play knight into e4, but he ends up in a slightly dubious position. What else can he play? Can he play bishop b7? So bishop b7 looks like an okay move, but Black actually loses a piece here because now White can play d5. If Black moves his knight, then I just take the bishop on a7, right? Black will be a piece down, but if let's say Black takes bishop on e3, then I take d into c6, and now two of Black's pieces are attacked: bishop on e3 and bishop on b7. And again, Black loses a piece here. Let's say bishop into c6, and I take f into e3, and I have an extra piece. So White has an extra piece here. So bishop b7 does not work, and for that same reason, bishop d7 also loses a piece, right? So again, I can play d5, and White is a piece up here. All right, so let's go back. What other moves can I play here? If Black plays d5, then White can go e5, and let's say he plays knight to e4, then White can start increasing pressure on Black's position by playing knight c3. Now I'm attacking both knight c3 and knight on e4 and pawn on d5. If Black takes knight into c3, then b into c3. And the evaluation here is that White has a very good position right out of the opening because he has a good pawn center, and plus White can start attacking the Black king by directing all of his pieces towards the Black king. So as far as opening preparation goes, I think this position also looks good for White. So Black, for his part, he wants to maintain equality, right? So d5 doesn't work. I mean, d5 ends up in a slightly bad position or a passive position. What else can we try here? So black plays knight b4. Okay. So for black, black's reason for playing knight b4 is that he wants to attack the pawn on e4. Now he's threatening knight into e4. So white plays knight c3, protects his pawn on e4, and black plays bishop b7. And I think this position looks equal, right? So as far as opening preparation is concerned, both white and black have got equal chances, right? So the position is equal, but that does not mean the position is a draw. When I say the position is equal, the emphasis is on the word equal chances. Like both players, white and black, have chance to either win, lose, or draw the game. So it's a decent fight. Again, as I said, the goal of opening preparation is to not lose right out of the opening, but also if you're playing against a good opponent, you should not expect to win out of the opening. What you should try to do for opening preparation is to get a playable position. And I think this position is both playable for white and black. Black has plans to play against the white center, e4 and d4. So his bishop on b7 and knight on f6 are attacking e4. Black can play rook e8. He can play c5. So black has plans to play against the white center. And as far as white goes, he also has like a good development, and he can work to try to improve his position in the center by playing rook e1, queen d2, rook d1, or he can also try to do something that Vachier Lagrave did in the actual game, which is playing knight g5. But I don't want to go deeper into this game because I think about here the opening preparation. I think this is a good point to say that the opening preparation of both white and black looks good. There are like about 100 different ways the game can go on. So which is really out of scope for this video. But my motivation for making this video is to show you the Archangelsk variation, which is black playing his bishop to c5 and bringing it on this a7 g1 diagonal, and how we can play it the right way and not lose track. As we have seen earlier in the video, there are a lot of complications. There are a lot of complicated variations for both white and black, which they need to be aware of. All right. So saying that, I will close this. I'll stop the video here. I will post the opening analysis on a PDF file, and I will post the link down in the description. So feel free to analyze this opening, and if you have any comments, feel free to put the comments under the video section. Thank you.